By the late 19th century, the Ottoman Empire was entering one of the most turbulent phases of its long history. Decades of territorial loss, economic dependency, and centralized autocracy had produced widespread frustration among intellectuals, military officers, and bureaucrats. From this environment emerged the Young Turks, a reformist and nationalist movement that sought to rescue the empire from collapse by restoring constitutional government and limiting absolute rule. Their rise challenged the authority of Sultan Abdul Hamid II and reshaped Ottoman politics, yet their victory in 1908 did not bring stability. Instead, it opened a period of political chaos marked by ideological conflict, resistance from conservatives, and deep divisions within the state. The roots of the Young Turk movement can be traced to the suspension of the 1876 constitution shortly after Abdul Hamid II ascended the throne. Initially proclaimed as a symbol of modernization and shared governance, the constitution had promised parliamentary representation and legal reform. However, amid war and internal unrest, the Sultan dissolved parliament and ruled as an autocrat for more than 3 decades. While his regime maintained order through censorship and surveillance, it also suppressed political participation and stifled reform, creating resentment among educated elites. By 1889, opposition began to organize in secret. Young Ottoman military cadets and medical students formed underground societies in Istanbul, advocating constitutionalism, modernization, and national unity. These early reformers believed that only a constitutional system could prevent further decline and protect the empire from foreign domination. Their ideas quickly spread beyond the capital, finding support among officers stationed in the Balkans, where exposure to European political thought and nationalist movements sharpened their sense of urgency. Exile played a crucial role in the growth of the movement. Many Young Turks fled to Europe to escape arrest, establishing networks in Paris, Geneva, and Cairo. From abroad, they published newspapers and pamphlets criticizing autocracy and calling for reform. These publications circulated secretly within the empire, challenging official narratives and inspiring dissent. The movement gradually evolved from scattered opposition into a more organized political force. Central to the Young Turks' ideology was the belief that constitutional government would strengthen rather than weaken the empire. They argued that representative institutions would foster loyalty among diverse populations, modernize administration, and limit corruption. Nationalism, though initially framed in inclusive terms, also shaped their vision. While some emphasized Ottoman unity across ethnic and religious lines, others increasingly promoted Turkish identity as the core of state survival. The movement gained momentum in the early 20th century as discontent within the army grew. Officers were frustrated by poor conditions, lack of advancement, and the empire's continued losses. Many blamed autocratic rule for military inefficiency and economic stagnation. Secret committees within the army coordinated with civilian reformers, transforming opposition into a potential revolutionary force. In 1908, events reached a turning point. Facing the threat of rebellion from army units in Macedonia, Abdul Hamid II was forced to restore the 1876 constitution. The announcement was met with widespread celebration across the empire. Crowds gathered in cities to mark what appeared to be a new era of freedom, equality, and political participation. Censorship was lifted, political prisoners were released, and elections were held for a new parliament. Yet the optimism of 1908 quickly collided with reality. The sudden expansion of political freedom exposed deep divisions within Ottoman society. Conservatives, religious leaders, and supporters of absolute monarchy viewed constitutionalism as a threat to tradition and stability. Many feared that reform would undermine Islamic authority and weaken the state. Resistance to change intensified, particularly among those who had benefited from the old system. In 1909, tensions erupted into open conflict. A counter-movement in Istanbul, driven by conservative soldiers and religious figures, demanded the restoration of absolute rule. Violence broke out as reformists and conservatives clashed. Although the uprising was suppressed by forces loyal to the Young Turks, it demonstrated how fragile the new political order was. Abdul Hamid II was deposed shortly afterward, ending his reign, but not the instability he left behind. With the Sultan removed, the Young Turks faced the challenge of governance. Their movement, now operating through the Committee of Union and Progress, struggled to translate revolutionary ideals into effective administration. Internal disagreements surfaced over the direction of reform, the balance between centralization and local autonomy, and the role of nationalism. Political parties multiplied, parliaments became arenas of intense rivalry, and consensus proved elusive. Conservatives continued to oppose change, resisting secular reforms and central authority. At the same time, ethnic nationalist movements gained strength, particularly in the Balkans, where constitutional reform failed to halt demands for independence. The empire's political chaos weakened its ability to respond to external threats, contributing to further territorial losses. Despite these challenges, the Young Turk era marked a decisive break from absolute monarchy. Constitutionalism became a permanent feature of Ottoman political life, shaping debates about citizenship, rights, and national identity. The movement also produced a new generation of leaders who would later play central roles in the empire's final years and in the emergence of successor states. The rise of the Young Turks reflected the contradictions of an empire struggling to modernize under pressure. Their success in forcing constitutional restoration demonstrated the power of organized opposition and military support. Yet their failure to achieve stability revealed the limits of reform in a society divided by ideology, tradition, and competing visions of the future. In the end, the Young Turks did not save the Ottoman Empire from collapse, but they transformed its political landscape. Their challenge to autocracy reshaped governance and accelerated the transition from imperial rule to modern statehood. The chaos that followed their rise was not merely a failure of leadership, but a reflection of deeper structural tensions that reform alone could not resolve.